So, hello and welcome back to another Improvement Season podcast episode. So this time, Steve and we are both actually kind of trash, or trashed, not trash. It depends it depends on the person and
White
whether
trash.
they think. Yeah, exactly. But no, we are both very tired. The reason as to why is something that we are, of course, going to discuss here in this podcast episode. So, Steve, I would very much assume that you are trash because of the Liverpool weekend, partying.
A few reasons. But first, I have to ask you, to your right, by your head, is that Cell?
It is.
Holy fuck.
It's a new
That's
figure.
cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just immediately saw it. I was like, that's Cell.
Yeah, and this one is actually because the band Presto ones, they are the cheaper versions of figures, right? You have like the Raisin figures, which are very expensive, but also huge and come always in a limited version or limited edition. Cost like 900 quid and stuff like this, which is pretty amazing though, because they look very good. And the cheaper ones, most of the time, they don't really look that great, right? And then I saw this Cell and I was just like, hey, for that price, I'm actually going to pick it up. You want to? So the details are actually pretty good on this one because normally, once again, the cheaper ones look this is like trash most of the time. Oh, there
Don't
goes
break it.
the wing. So this one, can you take a look at this?
Oh, sick. Yeah. He's fucking ripped.
And the details are actually pretty good on this one because normally it is actually not very good, especially the cheaper ones. If you were to see something like Goku or so, you would just be like, what the fuck is this?
A lot of people collect those like bobblehead ones, the pop variety. Do you know those ones?
I don't
with the
really
big
like
head?
those. I mean, yeah, I can see like one or two of those, but just in general, I don't really like those, to be honest. Still waiting for my Don Quixote de Flamingo, which was supposed to actually be shipped in June 2022, but because of course probably the delivery and all that kind of stuff, it's
what anime is
delayed. One Piece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that One Piece is huge, isn't it, in terms of episodes? Like crazy.
That's kind of a limited edition, which is a little bit more expensive, and you will definitely then see it in the background because that actually looks pretty sick. Just already on the pictures, and I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Nice. Sorry for the side tangent. I just had to pick them out.
It's absolutely all right. I think that people enjoy stuff like this as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I think I'm partially trashed because of the Fit Expo on the weekend, which just, you know what it's like. It was basically a rerun of the seminar weekend in terms of just taking you out of your routine. Actually, probably worse because I was on my feet, like, I don't know, probably a bit worse because I was like, having to be attentive for like 12 hours, like on my feet, on the stand, talking to people the entire day. Kind of my voice was like much deeper like the next day because I'd been like trying to shout over music and things. And we trained really late on the Saturday and I was like 1,000 calories under where I should have been, ate really late, and I was just a mess. Like, and this is where it really re-emphasizes to me how important it is for you to fucking have your ducks in a row. Yeah. And when I see people who are like, oh, I'm not making any progress, you like ask them what they do on the weekend, and basically they have what I had, but alcohol as well, and I don't know, even worse nutrition, because the nutrition wasn't like poor, it was just not enough. So yeah, it kind of took me off my good kind of sleeping, nutritional behaviors. My recovery was just way down basically. So partially that, but also because I only ever do like 5-to-1 accumulation to deload paradigms. And because I have my tattoo booked in this weekend, I was like, I have a week 6. And I really didn't plan for the like unfortunate bomb on my recovery of the Fit Expo to be the weekend before week 6. So it was like a double whammy of don't normally go for 6 weeks. And then you're going to have worse recovery on this weekend when you should really have the best recovery ever to help promote this week. So I took Monday completely off the gym and just like focused on trying to get back into good habits and things. But like yesterday was that leg session just fucking destroyed me. Like my legs are in bits today as well. But I managed to actually beat performance, which is outstanding.
This would have been my question. Like, did you feel
I didn't
good
expect
about
to.
it?
My hacks, it's like you get to that point where I really want to like assess my set from last week to this week. I added 2.5 kilos. So I didn't like do anything crazy. I just added 2.5 kilos, which is a really small amount of load for what I'm moving total in terms of a percentage, and then I just matched reps. But like, were my eccentrics any quicker on any of my reps? Was my pauses any less on any of my reps? Did I actually see progress, or did I ever so slightly modify my technique just to try and like beat the logbook per se? I don't know. I did think last week that maybe I was at 1 RER. It was very close. So maybe last week was like 0.5 and this week was 0. But it's funny, people watch my video and they're like, definitely had one more there. And I'm like, I'm not guessing that was 0 RER. Like, I guess it's like a guess, but it's a very well educated guess. Like.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And this is also one of the reasons why whenever an athlete of mine is asking me, what do you think? Was it kind of 1 or 2 RER? I'm just like, to be honest, I really don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, sometimes from the outside, it looks like as if you could have done like 3 more repetitions. But you can, from the inside, feel that if you're going from 1 more rep, you immediately drop the technique down to kind of turning it into a different exercise, needing to use so much more momentum, right? And that's why it's more something that people have to then learn to feel for themselves and learn to just like learn more about themselves in the sense of like, okay, what can I do and what type of lifter am I? Am I someone who's able to just like grind through the first rep looks already like as if you are hitting close to failure? Or are you someone who just like immediately hits a wall of like, it looks great and then all of a sudden nothing there anymore?
Yeah. And it can depend on like rep range. Like lower reps, I tend to find less grindability. And then also like depends on like exercise. Some exercises I can grind on better than others. So for hacks, my grindability is not amazing. It's pretty average. And it also depends potentially on the hack squat as well. The more vertical it is, I find probably less able to. The more flat it is, more able to, for whatever reason. There's probably some like in-depth biomechanics chat you can have about that. But today I had my pull workout and basically repeat performance on like almost everything. And I was just like, fuck, like I was just... It's not fun repeating performance at like 0 RER. And also you get to the point where I'm like, I feel like my technique may be degraded a little bit as well because I'm trying to like at least match last week's performance. I'm like, maybe I'm just that fatigued. So it's just going to be a really not very fun week.
I have a question for you, Steve, because this is something that I've noticed here this week. And this is not the first time that I've noticed it, but it became quite apparent this time where I then try to reflect upon it a little bit more. Are you, when you are feeling like this, like absolutely trashed, basically kind of under-recovered due to whatever reasons, and you're going into the sessions, are you sweating as much as you normally do, and are you feeling as hot as you normally do?
Well, I don't know if I'll take today as an example, and I thought I was sweating more and I felt more hot. Okay. So I don't know if are you the other way?
Yeah, because here this week I had it exactly the same. Because on the weekend I thought that it's a good idea to actually go wakeboarding. And it was kind of the same as with snowboarding. Because you are doing movement patterns that you haven't really done in. I can't even recall when the last time was that I did something like wakeboarding.
I've never done wakeboarding.
And it was only for 2 hours. And I thought like, hey, easy 2 hours. I'm a beginner, so it can't be that hard. On that day, I was trashed. And then the next day, I needed to actually take a recovery day, which just suits me fine because of the mesocycle and the setup. And by the end of the month, I'm actually going on holiday. So I could actually squeeze in a rest day to make it then fit into the entire schedule. But then the day after, which was then on Tuesday, I was still trashed and I was supposed to do pull day. And on the pull, I had no steam. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
kind of the
absolutely.
Energy was just gone. I was going into a set and it was just like everything felt unproductive. And I was still pushing through it. I was still trying to bring as much intensity as I can, still gotten through the entire session, but I wasn't really sweating much. And the same happened here today with my push session, where I still felt a little bit under-recovered. And this is something that I've noticed in the past, that when I'm a little bit under-recovered and I don't really feel super well going into a session, and the performance is then also basically presenting that or reflecting that, then I always feel that I'm not sweating as much and I'm not getting as much of a heat going when it comes to my body temperature.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I can't say I've experienced that specifically before. Today, I felt like I was sweating more than normal. I don't know why. It just felt like I think it was just a combination of things. But I have experienced the whole just feeling like I can do the movement, but I'm like my muscle connection is not there. Like it feels more like I'm not getting as good pumps, like, and the kind of stimulus within the muscle isn't as good, and it's more like I've got a bit of tennis, like I think it's tennis elbow, where you have like an ache in your elbow. Like I can feel that coming through this week. I feel it more in my joints and things, and less in the muscle. Even if I'm performing it like with good technique and things, it's just like the SFR just basically drops off and isn't as good. How sad is that? Like we're at that point where if we try and do something fun on the weekend, it just like mine is kind of understandable because of where I am. But you're like week, where are you in your meso? Like week
it's now
3?
Week 2. So 2.5, basically.
Like that's so early within your mesocycle for it to, you'd hope that early in the mesocycle you can, like it's not as big a deal.
That's why I was like, hey, it's great weather outside. Katie and Tony, they were in Magdeburg, and I thought like, hey, no one's at
you went
home.
On your own?
Yeah, exactly. By the way, we are getting to that in just a couple of seconds as well. But I thought like it's a good decision. Went there early in the morning for the beginner course, 2 hours. And once again, I'm still feeling it right now. And I'm just like, holy shit, I'm turning 35 and I feel this is what it must be like to actually age. And we've talked about it like last week already. But at the same time, and I want to bring it back to what it is that you said in having your ducks in a row. It just goes to show that if you are serious about something, then you have to do certain things in order to make them happen. You can't just like fuck around, because maybe it's a lack of understanding of what it truly then implies, or the implications of that are. So in regards to then the outcomes, but I think that maybe people underestimate how much of an impact it can actually have on your outcomes when you're not the most genetically best. You know, those people, right, who can do fuck all and still see results, but chances are, and that's something that I'm always saying, it's not you, right? Yeah. Because then you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, most likely. And that's why it kind of, and I know this is not really promoting our coaching service. I'm absolutely aware of that, right? Because I could be like, absolutely, I will help you go through it. But sometimes it kind of annoys me when an athlete of mine is just doing that on a repetitive basis and expecting still some results or different outcomes, while I'm still trying to communicate to them like, okay, this is probably not the best idea. Let's maybe tone it down just a little bit. You don't always have to go out. You don't always have to then eat a specific way, right? We can still make some compromises here. In order for you then to still go out and all that kind of stuff. But is it really necessary for you to consume 5,000 calories when you're eating out? No. When is that ever a really proper, good idea? Never really, unless you're, I don't know, in an eating challenge or anything alike. But
or you're huge.
But you get the idea, right? This kind of people come to us in order to seek help. And I always hope that the most amount, or the vast majority of people that come to us are serious about changing something. It's not just like Gen Pop who goes then into the fitness studio and tries to just like feel good after a workout, because these are kind of different outcomes or different situations. And then I simply I can't really relate to them. People still continuing to do it, listening to an expert, basically giving them recommendations, still repeat doing the same thing. And then maybe sometimes they are actually then reading a book and said like, this was the aha moment for me. I read that book and I was just like, this is basically what I'm repeating each and every single week. And it's great that you actually now got to the point with a book, but why haven't you done this before that? And sometimes they are never really reading that book. And they are just like continuing to repeat that thing, and they are not really seeing any kind of results up until the point where they're then dropping off. And then they have a negative connotation with the entire thing of like, fitness or the gym isn't for me. I haven't really seen the progress that I wanted to.
this is what's the definition of an insanity by Albert Einstein, like doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And this is actually something I brought up on my presentation, which hopefully will be available to buy next week from the kind of RP London seminar. And I basically said, like, if you can have a good workout from, like, if you have bad sleep or like really stressful week, or you like miss a bunch of meals, you're completely off with your nutrition, whatever it is, then you're probably not someone who's like going on advanced. But if you're likely not going to have a good session because of those things, then you're quite advanced. And I think that applies to a surprising number of people who may not even think they're necessarily that advanced, but it's because people think of advanced and they think of like someone who's hugely jacked. But really, I think the more helpful way of thinking about your level of advancement, as we've spoken about before, is like how fast you're making adaptations, how easy do gains come to you, because there are people who look advanced, but like you said, they're those like genetically blessed people who can do like fucking tons of things, quote unquote, wrong and still see results. Actually, on paper, they're like intermediate, like beginner, whereas maybe you look intermediate beginner and you actually need to do some advanced things. A lot of the time it's not that way, but like if you are like listening to this and you think, oh yeah, if I have like a really manic weekend, it does impact my training the next week. You don't want to have every weekend a manic weekend, because it will start really shortcutting your progress.
So I'm always trying then to understand where the individual is coming from, because I don't want to be the coach who's just like, yeah, my way or the highway, or not trying to empathize with people when it comes to this. I can't really understand that behavior because I haven't done this in such a long time. But probably if I were to work with me, my early 20s me, right, I would probably be still very much the same. And that person that I'm having right now a hard time relating to. So I'm always trying to put myself in their shoes, but still have such a hard time understanding it, because thing is, what's the thing that we are investing? It's time. And time, I said it so often in the past, is the most precious good. It's something that we can't ever earn, or maybe then in the future if technology is so advanced, but right now we can't earn it. We won't get time back, right? And once it's spent, it's gone forever. And especially considering this, it boggles me that you are then spending time on something that you may not enjoy, or that you are finding burdensome, or that you're just spinning your wheels at. There are so many other beautiful things in life. Why does it then have to be moving weight from A to B and sticking to a nutritional plan for 6 days in a row, when then the 7th day in the row, you're just like throwing it all away? It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me from a rational perspective, right? And I had even the discussion with Katie lately, because she signed up for the gym like last year, and she's going into the gym with a friend of hers. But of course, because both people are adults, they have other tasks and obligations that they need to take care of, and the gym is not really her biggest priority. She skips it every now and then. And to me, I just had that discussion with her, because she said like, yeah, I want to do something, yada, yada, yada. You know, the typical things that people are then bringing up. And I'm just like, Katie, you don't really need to have to do a lot. It's kind of maybe like 2 or 3 times per week, you're going in there for an hour. Just focused work, right? When you're there, focus. Even if you don't really fully or 100% enjoy what it is that you're doing right now, you need to make that commitment, because you don't really have any kind of other alternatives, because the alternatives come with a little bit more time that you need to invest, and that time you don't have right now due to then the other obligations and due to kids and stuff like this. Because she would prefer to go into a CrossFit box and do CrossFit, which I can absolutely understand and also support, but the CrossFit box is far away, and then getting there, commuting, and all that kind of stuff just takes so much more time that she simply doesn't have. So in the meanwhile, what do you want to do? Nothing at all? That probably doesn't really make anything better. And I even said to her, and this is very, very personal and intimate what I'm sharing right now, but I want people then to also hear this, because I'm absolutely aware that many people have the same situation, maybe in their environment, that they want to see their, I don't know, partner or loved ones or family members doing something good from a health perspective as well, because we are growing older. Katie is older than I am. Yes, she is. And if she doesn't really start now of building those habits, that is something that can cost her very, very, very much, like later down the line, because it's getting harder and harder to build that muscle mass in the first place. And then she will actually suffer from maybe some kind of health consequences when it comes to that. And also, of course, from a selfish perspective, I like it when my partner is a little bit fit. Right? And I think that there's no shame in that as well, in admitting that. And what I'm referring to is just like, or what I'm trying to say is that I had that discussion with her, the typical things that she brought up that many people are struggling with. And I basically said, like, there doesn't need to be a lot to it, but you have to make a committed approach to them when you are already investing time. Then see it through, because otherwise, all of the time that you've invested beforehand is basically for nothing. And that is a waste of your most precious good. And that is something that I just hate to see.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service that will take your physique and knowledge to the next level. If you're interested, check the description and sign up.
It's one of those things, like people spend so much time thinking about something, and it's like, just go do it. Like, especially when you're new to something, like, just go do it, because you're going to get so much just from starting. But I was actually going to say, I don't know how you feel about these. Like, I think it depends on every relationship to some degree, because a lot of people in the fitness industry are with people in the fitness industry, whereas like we're both, like, our partners aren't. And I always have a hard time having these sort of discussions with Charlotte, because I am so far the other extreme, because she doesn't go to the gym. She doesn't like pay attention. Yeah, she pays some attention to her food to some extent. That'll be unfair to say she doesn't. She understands a lot, and she could like probably go into the gym and do a good workout because she just listens to me. But I have a very hard time coming from my point.
Whenever you go on a ramble about things.
Yeah, it's surprising how much she ends up knowing. But yeah, I have a hard time trying to encourage or even talk to her about it, or even like nutrition training, because I'm like, just because I'm a coach, PT, and I struggle to come from that perspective. Same with family. Like, I struggle to help them because I'm like, I don't know, it just feels a bit awkward. It's like if you had a really good, like, I'd never want to coach, like, people coach their partners to stage. I know John Jewett coached his wife.
But she's very serious about it, right?
Yeah, maybe it's different then. Like, but trying to coach, I couldn't coach Charlotte. That'd be fun. No. Like, I just like, I don't know how people do that. So, do you find it hard at all, like having those discussions?
No, not really, because we are not really talking that much about it. For me, gym and the fitness endeavor is my thing, and that's why I'm not really talking with Katie about it much. To be honest, that's not that I keep things from her or anything alike, or that she's not interested in my hobby or so, but it's just something that she's aware that I love doing that. And I think it's actually even a good thing that she's not like that serious lifter type, because otherwise it would be, and we've talked about it in the past, kind of all-encompassing, overly consuming my life, basically, if my partner were into that as well. And if then, at times, she's in a prep when I'm not in a prep, or we both are in a prep, and the kids, man, I would feel so sorry for our kids, to be honest, if that was the case. And she acts kind of like a catalyst for me in that instance, to pull me out of that fitness lifestyle and the gym. I think, of course, this comes also with maturity. We've talked also about that, that we both, you and I, we know now when to push and when to pull back. But same as you, I would very much assume, and you've even mentioned that in the past, that Charlotte kind of, it's good that she has nothing to do with fitness, because, once again, she pulls you out of that kind of small bubble, basically on a daily basis.
It's actually funny, you mentioned you don't really talk about it to her. I was just thinking, how does Charlotte pick it all up? And I'm like, it's because she watches my story on Instagram every day. So she watches the Q&As, so she sees the question and answers.
Katie doesn't have any kind of Instagram, so I could post whatever I want.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you could post anything. I don't know how we got here, and I don't know where to go, but
I still have more to say on this one, because I don't really want to force my partner into doing something that I enjoy.
Yeah,
just
for sure.
Because exactly. It has to come from them. And she even brought it up, like at times she feels a little bit pressure from my end when it comes to this, because of course she also wants to be attractive for me. And I can definitely see this, right? When I'm then basically in that fitness realm and I see lots of people with amazing bodies, and she has no idea of what it looks like because she doesn't have Instagram, and the way that she paints it in her own head, it's like lots of chicks looking freaking amazing, writing or sending me messages, and I'm just like constantly bombarded and in touch with those kind of individuals. I would very much assume. She sometimes said like
tell her I get loads. I actually get none. I get literally zero.
If at all, it's kind of dudes sending me messages like, looking sexy as fuck with that mustache. Like, honestly, so often.
That's amazing.
Already. It's awful. Keep them coming. No. But what I wanted to say is that she feels pressure, even though that it's not that I'm kind of I don't feel that I'm pressuring her because I don't really bring up the topic a lot. But maybe just by my actions, in that I'm training 6 days per week, I'm kind of doing a lot for that. I'm eating the way that I want, even when we are kind of together. It's not that we are basically doing like a bowl of spaghetti for the entire family. It's like I'm eating my thing, and that's all right. But perhaps those actions cause then also a little bit of pressure as well.
Does she care how you look?
She likes me a little bit heavier. That's what she said a couple of times already. I think that
some cushion.
Yeah, I think that she likes also the way that I look right now. But if she could pick and choose, I think that she would like me on the heavier side, so the bulking size instead of like the contest prep size.
Yeah, I don't think many girls like her. Like, I love your shredded glutes. Like, feel those. She's great at glutes. I love that.
You're not getting a hard on? That's absolutely all right. I still like the way that you look.
I like the flaccid feel. Yeah. Oh dear me. But no, it's in terms of like clients. I was going to bring up this point. I'm sure you're the same way, Pascal. I'm like, we can run it in terms of if they have this sort of lifestyle. I'm like, we can keep running this way until we can't. Like, if you're still seeing results despite what you're doing, that's great until we can't. And then we need to reprioritize if you want to still see results. It's just like a really honest discussion, because I don't know, people will put out content like you said, balance. Don't worry, we can see amazing results. We can balance everything in your life. It's kind of similar to like if it fits your macros, don't worry, you can have alcohol, you can have all the like cheese and chocolate. It's like, but there's a big caveat there. It's still within restrictions. Otherwise, you're not going to see results. It's just how restrictive you need to be.
On that note, the people who are promoting something like balance are the ones who have like 10, 20 years of knowledge and experience under their belts most of the time. And they have gone through very cyclical and hard phases, have maybe often been to extreme ends already, and have gotten now to the point where they are kind of able to just like float, and still things are in check, such as you and I. I don't necessarily need to track my food anymore. Why? Because I'm basically eating the same thing each and every single day. And if it deviates from that, it's still something that I probably had here over the past couple of days or weeks at some point, and I kind of know the caloric value. And from the outside, it looks like, hey, he is eating whatever he wants. He's doing intuitive eating and all that kind of stuff. But in reality, it's just like very, very ingrained habits and a very deep understanding and knowledge that most people don't have. And that's something that most people don't really see because they lack, of course, the knowledge around this to detect that person has probably gone through hardships and a lot of extreme approaches in order to get there. And that's also why I have such a big problem with that. It's kind of a little bit like a little bit hypocritical, you know? Or like, hey, just do this. You don't have to actually track things. This is what you have to do. When then that individual has gone through such a hard time over years only to then get to the point where then those habits and the knowledge is so ingrained that they don't really have to do something in order to actually stay on track, because it's just an automated process in the background.
I think it's similar to when you get like these Instagram influencers who have incredible physiques, and they promote this, like you is basically promoting this balance where they barely train and they eat really lax and they're in amazing shape, and people think like, oh, like if they can do that and be in that amazing shape, that must be the answer. And it's like, well, no, they're just maintaining, because it's so easy to maintain amazing shape once you're there. If you try and attempt to do what they're doing to get to there, it's not going to happen. So yeah, it's frustrating when you see that, and I think it just takes a while for people to realize that as well. And it opened my eyes a little bit recently. It's kind of a bit of a tangent, but I think you'll appreciate this. When I was at the expo and talking to some people, and just realizing, and I think particularly for females, where I don't think people, I think it's bad just in general in the fitness industry in terms of being open about use of gear and anabolics. But I think it's particularly bad in the female arena because it's not as obvious, I don't think, because you could be on just small amounts that just enhance fat loss or a bit of muscle building, and they don't need a lot to get, like we know, like you don't need a lot of extra like test to see like a big improvement in results, and they don't always need that much if they're like doing bikini and PCA. But I think having spoken to some people on the weekend, the number of people, like I didn't realize they were necessarily on anything. They like taught me through it, and like, oh, okay. They're like, and they like said it really helped their results and everything. Like they were very open about how much it made a big difference for them. But I don't think many women looking into the fitness industry, like Katie or Charlotte, like if they looked at some of these girls, they'd be like, they're not on stuff, surely. But they are. And then they expect that they should be able to get to that shape without having like these enhancements things. I'm not saying it's the enhancements that are the only thing that matter. Obviously, they're putting in really hard work, but it's like people think they can put in that hard work and get there. And it's like, well, maybe if you have really good genetics, but probably you're going to need to do whatever they're doing. That was interesting.
No, I can definitely see that. And I'm very naive to that, because I actually don't really know a lot of people who are on gear. And those who are, it's either quite obvious, they are open about it. Yeah, those are the ones, basically, right? And that's not a lot of people that I know of. So when it then comes to the people where you don't really see that at first, and especially when it comes to female competitors, I really don't have any kind of huge clue about it, to be honest. And I can definitely see that if we are already clueless about it, how should then the people who aren't really doing this on a daily basis decipher whether someone is maybe enhanced or not? And the same goes also then for making progress, and basically going back to what it is that we've talked about of having the ducks in a row. Both you and I, we try to actually get the most out of our progress possible. And we have to actually work harder for this. And I'm still not satisfied with the progress that I'm making. Right? And that is trying to tick off all of the boxes. So how can you then expect amazing or quite decent results if you're barely doing half of the things that we are doing? And I'm not saying that people should be doing what we are doing. It's just like in comparison to the amount of work and effort that we are putting in, you would then expect that you would see amazing results. And even this, in my opinion, is, I would love it if it was much, much more, to be honest. But that's just the name of the game and reality. And then if someone isn't having the ducks in a row, then it's even much slower than our progress. And that is already slow to begin with.
Yeah. And I find it, again, sometimes I feel like I'm being a bit hypocritical, because I always do say, and we say as well, like, focus on yourself, don't focus on others, do your best job, you'll get the best results you can. But at the same time, when I see, like, when we drop a transformation photo, we always try and give a backstory, like what's realistic, what has this person done, who are they? Like I say, try and give people information about that person, just they have some sort of understanding. But there's also people putting up transformation photos, at least that I've seen, and there's no discussion of something that is fundamentally obvious to me. Normally it's males for that reason. They're on some sort of gear because they've gained whatever 30 pounds of lean tissue within a year or less time sometimes, But from the outside in, for someone who's completely ignorant, they don't know that. So it's like saying, I don't know, if we're wrong, it's hard to say for our business, but for various businesses, it could even be beneficial for them to go on to steroids just because they look bigger. And if you look bigger, you attract more people to your business.
It is a very, very tough one without actually then insulting other coaches out there and the way that they do things, because that's definitely not something that I want to actually do here with this discussion that we are having right now. And I think that we probably then forget some of the nuances in this discussion, which is absolutely normal, right? But just my first initial thought when you brought it up, yes. And what it is that I always find misleading, and once again, this is not to insult or bash any kind of coaches out there, people who are working with enhanced athletes and natties at the same time. And then they are putting out kind of transformation pictures without the information that this individual is enhanced. Then the natty who's working with that coach or wants to work with the coach expects that this may be possible as a natural athlete for them maybe as well, or it's kind of already a subtle promotion in order for that individual to go enhanced, of like, hey, this is what you look like maybe as a natty, and this is the transformation that you can expect once you go down the enhanced route. And from an ethical perspective, I have a huge issue with that, because I think most people don't take the time to make a calculated decision of whether it's a good idea to jump on gear or not. It's more like they see something like this, they may be attracted by it, which is something that is absolutely normal. This is just like human behavior and nature. But starting to take gear without really considering the consequences, really trying to actually have your ducks in a row for a long period of time as a natural, is, in my opinion, a little bit of an irresponsible move that can have long-lasting effects for the remainder of your life. And if then people are putting it out such as this without any kind of disclaimer that this is an enhanced transformation, it kind of promotes maybe the wrong ideas.
I think I have seen people who are very good at clarifying that sort of thing. Like they have that like disclaimer in there or whatever, or they have some information surrounding their cycle or something, which I think is, I don't think it promotes it in the same way. Like people might think that, oh, that's promoting someone should take that cycle or whatever. But I think it's just like more information for the individual. I forget we had that guy on our podcast who was doing a research study in like steroids, and he talked about kind of, he wants
Alex Colliari.
That's the one. Yes. Yeah. I don't know how that study got on, actually.
I don't know.
No, I haven't heard anything about it. Yes, that's very true. And I know he kind of made that point of like, he isn't like pro steroids, he isn't anti steroids, he is pro education surrounding that. So I think that's a very important factor. And I think from my very narrow perspective, it seems that they're becoming more easy to get hold of. And I'm not sure that the educational side has increased sufficiently so people are aware. And I think a lot of people get into it and maybe get burnt and then get educated. And that's like the backwards way. So I'm really happy to see people like Broderick Chavez, who are having a wider presence, educating people. The Physique Collective, they have a wider presence in educating people on like the safer use model, I think they're calling it, and John Jewett. But there's just a long, long way to go, I think. I don't know how I really got onto this subject matter, but
what I don't like about it is, in a country like Germany, for example, you are basically criminalized for actually steroid use. And I don't really think that this is fair, because you're basically put on the same level as someone who's kind of doing very much criminal activities, even though that you basically just decide to take steroids for yourself. I think that when it comes to that sensitive of a topic, it's due to uneducation and all that kind of stuff most of the time. At the same time, though, I have to say that if I had access in my 20s, especially in my early ages of the 20s, when I was especially like very risk averse due to not having a family and all that kind of stuff, and there would have been someone around me who had kind of gear for me, I would have taken it. And that is very scary, because I know that this would have been, or coming from a very, very uneducated perspective, And I would have just taken it because I had access to it, and I would have seen like other people then around me and stuff like this, right? And probably then taking it for years on end, and maybe then first after years suffering from perhaps negative consequences due to being uneducated and uninformed, and then you regret the decision afterwards because you couldn't really make a proper calculated decision when you were younger. And this is what I find scary when the rules around it aren't really set by possibly the government, that there aren't any kind of limitations, because how well is it that you're really listening when you are someone who really wants to take the risk as a younger individual? You're not listening to other guys or other people. It's just a matter of fact. We see it in other fields as well. People just do it then. And sometimes, especially when it can have potential long-term consequences, if you don't or if you're not careful about it, and you make some, I don't know, have some abusive tendencies when it comes to this, then it can set you up for a very grim future, right? And this is just me being absolutely honest. If the situation in Germany would have been a different one back then, and it's still the case, of course, it's illegal to have it, and the level of entry would have been easier, then I would have taking steroids along, then I would have been jacked, but maybe then I would have also had some kind of heart issues, because that's basically what I was dealing with over the past couple of years now. And it would have just been exaggerated and probably just like made matters worse without me knowing my body in that kind of situation.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
No, yeah, it's a very good point. I don't know. This is a very, again, a side tangent, but it's on the same lines. As I had a client recently who we discussed this, he had his blood's done just as a general like health check, and I kind of warned him ahead of time. You've been dieting a long time, you lost a lot of body weight, you're pretty lean now, you're going to have high cortisol levels, your testosterone is going to be real low, so expect that to come. And he had his results back, and his doctor, who used to be an enhanced bodybuilder, was like recommending he go on TRT, and was like, you're not going to be able to have kids, your natural testosterone production is too low, I recommend you get on TRT as soon as possible. And like,
when you're on it, here's D-Ball and Trent as well.
Fuck me, yeah, man. Where would he stop? It was just absurd, because I think there's also those people who lack the education and awareness of like we talked about, if your ducks are not in a row, how can you expect your body to be healthily producing everything it should be producing? Sure, some people can get away with it, but I wouldn't expect my testosterone to be looking good if like I'm drinking alcohol all the time, or my sleep was really trash, or I was in the position my client was where he'd been dieting for, like, if you get someone who's in contest prep, like they're good, like hypogonadal, like it's just going to be the case. But like you mentioned when we talked it through, so much of it is environmental. And that's just a level of an education that I think some people just aren't aware of. They think we're kind of robots and we should be always like producing, I don't know, a level of testosterone all the time. But you have to like protect these things and promote them. And yeah, it's just a scary place when there are like doctors so readily, and it's the same with coaches, so readily open, like they're like, oh, for females, fat loss is harder. And if you're a coach, and I don't know, probably not anyone listening to this, and I don't know any coaches doing this, but I've heard of this happening, where you are enhanced and results come quicker if you can just, rather than drop calories or whatever, you drop in whatever it is that aids fat loss. You kind of say to them, oh, like it'll just be easier if we just do this. And then you're on that path, and now you have no choice about it. And you think, because I don't know, this authority figure, and I know we've spoken about it before, where there's a sense of ownership from that person who has the coach to kind of investigate it themselves. But unfortunately, a lot of people just trust their coach blindly because, you know, they say they're that sort of coach who's like my way or the highway. They have loads of athletes who have got shredded. And then you're down that path now, and there could have been another way. And it's sad to see that happens for a lot of individuals.
Unfortunately, yes. And you bring up a very good point, because when it comes to testosterone or TRT in general, I think it always depends on the country as well. and also on the doctor for sure, because I had, when I was secondary hypogonadal, that one time in 2017-18, I had this one doctor who said, like, I can prescribe you TRT. I was just like, wait a second, let's go to an endocrinologist first, because I don't really want to actually make that transition right now without actually then having a specialist taking a look at that. Because just a normal doctor is a normal doctor. They know a lot, but the when it comes to hormones is such a complex field, and there's a reason why we have endocrinologists who are specialized in analyzing and interpreting hormonal data. And I went to them, and he basically said, like, okay, get your ducks in a row. Take care of your stress management. Take care of your sleep. Are you in a caloric deficit right now? Yes. Get out of the caloric deficit. And then let's have a consultation in 6 months to a year from now. That's what I did. Try my very best to actually then get my ducks in a row, taking care of my stress, my sleep, and also the deficit as best as I can. And voila, my testosterone levels were back to normal. And unfortunately, it's because it's something that you brought up, even, that people are too quick to make that call. So they feel shitty, they go to a doctor, get blood tests done, and the doctors say, like, okay, let's get onto TRT. And I had it so often already in the past, it's actually quite surprising. And to some extent it isn't, because there's definitely a lack of education when it comes to this, of why can testosterone levels be low. And even the normal doctors don't really educate their patients about it. They just see the blood results, and instead of questioning them of like, okay, what are you doing right now? Are you in a stressful situation? What's the sleep like? Are you eating plenty, or is it that you are dieting or not? Right? Because those things have major implications on then the natural testosterone production. And instead of then asking those questions or educating the patient, no, they are immediately then jumping the gun and saying, like, okay, this is something that we could do. This is a feasible option because your testosterone levels are outside of the normal range. And I wasn't aware of secondary hypogonadism before I actually had it and went to actually then see the endocrinologist and try to educate myself around it. I just thought testosterone levels are low, so TRT is probably the way to go. And then I saw the endocrinologist, and just due to the person that I am, I've tried online to find out as much about it as possible. But it was only the moment when the endocrinologist said, like, it's secondary hypogonadism. And I was just like, what is secondary hypogonadism? It's called due to external factors. That I was like, oh shit, okay, so I just need to change things about my lifestyle and then it can possibly get better? He said, like, yes, because your balls, they are healthy. Your pituitary gland is also healthy as well. We did some testing on this one. We kind of stimulated the pituitary gland. Was the pituitary gland, right? Yeah. Came back healthy as well, right? So it must have been then secondary hypogonadism. That was kind of the diagnosis that he brought up.
What was it, just for the listeners, the main thing you changed that kind of brought that back into
everything at once? Honestly, it was because I was a chronic dieter. I was constantly in a caloric deficit. I was massively sleep deprived. And that was combined with then also being massively hungry, and by that probably also stressed big time. And that was also during the time where I was working in an office, trying then to actually build the business also with Revive Stronger, also visiting evening school at the same time as well. So a lot of things happening at the same time alongside with a caloric deficit, and then not sleeping well. It was just like a recipe for disaster. Yeah. And I got up constantly in the middle of the night, probably also a little bit stress related, but also because I was massively hungry. And then I ate in the middle of the night, right? Just because I was feeling so ravenous. And because of that, didn't really get proper sleep in because my sleep was disrupted. And then the cycle just repeated each and every single day. And it was so reflecting back on it, it was not really a surprise that the bloods came back the way that they were. And most of the time, I think that when people listen to this and educate themselves on what secondary hypogonadism is and how it then can be caused, they often come to the conclusion or solution and answer themselves of like, okay, am I in a deficit? Yes or no. Am I sleep deprived? Yes or no. Am I stressed right now? Yes or no. And if you can then say like yes to any one of those or all of those at the same time, chances are that it is correlated to this one.
Yeah. That's something I watched a video with Dr. Spencer Nadolsky on RP's channel about like testosterone. And he actually said, like, you don't just test. Like, you don't just, it's just not something that you just need to go and do. Like, go and test how much testosterone you have. Like, it's something you go and seek out if there's an issue. So if you are, I don't know, like, he basically said low libido is like the biggest sign. So if you've got a low libido, maybe go check it out. But we would further that, I think, now and say, like, get all those ducks in a row first, bringing it back to like having your ducks in a row. Make sure you're getting good sleep. Make sure your stress isn't super high. Make sure you've not been chronically dieting for ages. And still then, if your if your libido, say, is low, that's then where you get a test, because that could be a sign that something's off, and then the endocrinologist can help you in that scenario. Maybe then you are someone who actually legitimately does need to go down the route of TRT.
And also, you have to maintain that status quo for a longer period of time. It's not enough to actually then, like you said, have the ducks in a row for like a period of 1 week of like, hey, I'm sleeping well right now, stress is low, and I'm right now in a diet break. Let's get the blood test done.
Yeah.
That's not what it's like. Probably you need to actually then, if your bloods came back like they are right now, very low in testosterone, 6 months after maybe coming out of something like a deficit. I know it's a long time frame, right? But the body then needs time to actually get adapted and recover once again. And then maybe 6 months after then the situation occurred, and after you've properly taken care of improving your situation, then get the test done. For me personally, I first took another test, I think 1 year or 1.5 years after that.
Oh, wow.
And it came back positively. Right. So
did you expect it to come back positive too?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I knew that something has changed in my life.
Yeah.
You know, I felt also just generally much, much better. And so I think that the normal testosterone, it came back even in the mid-range, and then the free testosterone was on the lower spectrum, but still in the spectrum itself.
Yeah, it's that's what I was thinking. You can probably see it after that period of time. And I think there's that one like natural bodybuilding case study where it's like the contest prep was 6 months and it took at least 3 months for things to like somewhat normalize at that period of time. So that's a good like reason. You need, like you said, you need to have had your ducks in a row for an extended period of time. And then if it's still not feeling like you're getting all the normal things you should be getting, such as libido, like your beard growth is as normal, what have you, that sort of thing, then go get it checked out. Otherwise, like, I'm not someone who's getting my testosterone checked all the time because I'm like, I have no reason to. And if it just, likelihood is whenever I've got it tested, it comes down like a bit low. And I don't want that in my head. Like, and actually it doesn't make much difference if it's at like within the normal ranges. It's not making a huge difference to your results, but I prefer just to kind of go along my way knowing I'm okay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think that I have anything more to add around the testosterone topic. It's more everything that we've just talked about is kind of having the ducks in a row. And then based off of that, it kind of always boils back or down to the invest return spectrum that I've talked about in one of my presentations. And the more you invest, and that means having the ducks in a row, the more of a return you can then expect. That isn't always a linear thing, of course. It's not that if you do X, you will immediately equals Y or so. But of course, with the more boxes are ticked, the more likely it is that you're increasing the chances of success. It's kind of goes back to what it is that we I think brought up the last time about the post that Cliff Wilson made about gaining is such a slow process. You sometimes won't even know whether you are making progress, but the more boxes you are ticking off on a continuous basis, the more likely it is that things happen. And if you don't, you have to be realistic about it, and you can't really blame anyone else if then the progress isn't really happening.
Yeah. I know Cliff used I think it was like a bucket of water analogy, but I've moved it because I think it's a little bit more relatable of thinking like a plant. You can't see a plant necessarily growing. You don't see like the flowers. They just kind of come out of nowhere a lot of the time. I very much think about that in terms of, what is going to lead to a plant growing, put it in the sun, you give it some plant food, you water it nicely, you do all the things need to happen for it to grow, and it will. Like natural growing. Like I recently did, it was one of my clients, I posted his transformation lately, and he literally was like, a few times checked in, he was like, no, really not sure if I've gained much muscle, I feel like I've just gained fat. We cut down, he compares photos, he's like, there's legitimately at least 5 pounds of muscle he's grown over the last few years. It's like, great. And it's like you said, you have to, especially when you're later in this game as a natural, you have to just invest so much and keep like, it isn't, trusting the process is kind of what you're doing, but it's also like, you don't have to trust something that is working. But I know some people will be like, is it working?
And to be honest,
and you just have to keep going.
Now that you are bringing up trusting the process, in it for itself, it's actually a bad statement, because trusting the process just means that you're just trusting whatever is currently going on. But of course, you have to then put in the work and effort, and first then you can trust the process. It's like you need to have, I always come back to the saying of like having your ducks in a row, but you need to have the ducks in a row in order to trust the process. And it's not just like, I just trust the process that something is happening, but I don't know what. You of course need to do the things in order to see then the plant grow, instead of just like planting a seed into the ground and then just like leave it there and hope that it's actually then coming out.
I wonder if it's more like the process, like what leads to this result. So keep just knowing that this is the process. Like when you're gaining, you aren't going to be able to see it. You're going to have to trust performance is going up, body weight's going up. Yeah, I'm looking softer, but I know if I keep putting in these inputs and I'm getting these outputs and it's looking positive, like everything's in the right direction, my ducks are in a row. When I come to cut down, I spend that investment, I'm going to see some good results again. I'm not guessing. There is no guesswork.
If someone is re-listening to this episode by that time now, I want you to count the times we said ducks in a row.
Ducks in a row. I was like, I want to Google where this saying comes from. Yeah. Where does ducks in a row come from? Because when I think about it, it's like, what? That doesn't even make sense to me why that's a saying. But everyone knows what it means.
A family or a duck family, they are always kind of walking in an orderly fashion, right? And they are not just like walking around each and every one on their own. It's kind of in a row. So everything has a structure to it. I would assume that this is where it comes from.
I don't know why. All I'm thinking about is Tusken Raiders in a row, because Tusken Raiders, they walk behind one another.
Yeah.
So that they step on one another's tracks, so you can't track them easily.
That's one of the cutest sounds, I think.
Which ones? Wait, Tusken Raiders don't make that sound, do they?
No, they are making. Oh, what are the what are the small ones? What are the small ones again? The
Ewoks.
No, not the Ewoks.
Oh,
those with kind of they have. You can only see the eyes of those most of the time.
I know what you mean. The scavenger type of ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
They are like
the names. Yeah. Oh dear.
Sure.
Have you? By the way, you haven't watched Obi-Wan yet, have you? You haven't got access to it.
I won't watch it, I think.
Oh really? The last 2 episodes of, because someone asked if I'd watched episode 5 when I made my comment of it's a bit meh. I hadn't, so I've watched it all now. The last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Good.
The thing is, I don't know whether I'm also there, just growing older and becoming that kind of, I don't know, movie and music Nazi who's just like, everything was much, much better back then. But often I find it to be the case, especially in movies. So often, just like an old movie or an old story is just being recycled another time and another time. And the older you grow, the more likely you have seen a certain story already. And it's so often the same thing. That's why I actually enjoy anime so much,
classics.
even though anime they do have genres, and especially like shonen, it's kind of always the same principle. You have like this outsider who wants to be the greatest, maybe hero in the world, right? And all of a sudden he becomes like great because of hard work and all that kind of stuff, you know? It's kind of the same, but the way it's built, it's always a little bit different, you know? And when it comes to movies, often it's just like a recycling or one-to-one copy of what already went on back then. I still do remember when we both watched the one of the new Star Wars in that huge mall, what it was, right? And I was so disappointed by it because it was one-to-one the first Star Wars movie just wrapped into modern cinematics and stuff. I was just like, I was so disappointed. And that's what I really dislike.
There's just some good fight scenes in the last episode, particularly with Vader and with Obi-Wan, and it just like it brings some feels, like you feel like you're like however years old again.
Totally.
Like 8 years old.
I mean, it looks amazing for sure, right? Most of the time things look amazing, but often there's a lack of kind of creativity, of balls, of trying something new. And whenever I'm watching a movie that is kind of a little bit out of the norm, I'm kind of often impressed by it because it is something new. It is entertainment of what a movie is supposed to be, and not just another spin-off of what has happened in the past, just wrapped into new paper, or trying to actually send a message, now making, I don't know, female actors a little bit more as a hero and all that kind of jazz. I don't really need a political message behind a movie when it's just like another spin-off of something that already happened in the past. And right now I'm just watching Alien again, which is one of my most favorite movies of all time because it is such an iconic movie, and I'm watching it with Katie, right? Because once again, it is just such an amazing movie. It did so much for the music, for the movie industry. And there, for example, it is from 1979, and there's so little CGI work. For example, nearly everything was handmade, and you can see it. The love, the attention to detail. That's just like, it is amazing. It is amazing. This is artwork and not just like a CGI fucking thing. I've just watched Doctor Strange the other day with Katie, and it was just such a shitty, disappointing movie. Everything was just like so poorly made CGI. I mean, it is great, right? Great, well made, amazing that something like this is possible. But at the same time, it didn't really have anything to it.
The feel.
Yeah. It was just not. When there's the alien, you can see the alien like 3 times. And it's scary as fuck, right? Because also it was handmade, right? It looks real. Well, nowadays, when there's a monster in some kind of movie, there's no tension because it just looks so fake, so unreal. And then I don't really have any kind of emotions to it. It's just like, what the fuck is this? That's the only emotion that I have.
Jurassic Park is bad for that. Like the new ones, they don't feel real.
No.
They look very fake. Yeah. Star Wars is good though because normally they are better at like they dress up the characters and stuff, so they don't rely on CGI as much. At least I feel like. But I know what you mean. The only time it just made me laugh out loud when I saw this because I hadn't seen Jaws, and then I saw it like a few years ago, and the original Jaws, and you just see like this plastic shark just like slowly come to the screen and smash through glass, and I'm like, it looks so bad.
I'm not saying that all of the old movies are great, because there is a point where just like CGI is just much, much better, that's for sure, right? But especially when it comes to action scenes or so. And it's also funny to now rewatch Alien, which was in 1979. Their idea of what the future will look like, and they back then didn't really have the CGI to make then amazing, I don't know, computer screens and all that kind of stuff. These are old computers in like a space shuttle where you're just like, what the fuck, you know? But at the same time, it's just so well made. And nowadays, movies and shows often, once again, they are just like spin-offs, kind of replicas of what has happened in the past already, and too much CGI. So the entire spirit often is being lost. And then often it's just like, what the fuck happened there? This doesn't really make any kind of sense. Like Charlotte what is it? Chartered. No, what's it called again? Blah blah blah. Which she was so powerful, and then there was this one scene where she's just like chasing the other guys, and she can fly, and she was just like walking very slowly. And I was just like,
this happens in
what the fuck?
Obi-Wan. Stuff like that happens. Yeah. Oh well. Anyway, we should probably.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Sorry for the rant.
I still recommend the last 2 episodes.
Cool. Then, guys, without actually keeping you any longer, thank you very much, as always, for listening. If you have anything to say about the episode, anything about kind of this low testosterone, ducks in a row, or any kind of things to say about movies or so, feel free to put it into the comment section below. As always, hit the like, hit the subscribe, and I guess I'll speak to you guys very soon. Cheers.
Get your ducks in a row. How many was that? So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Steve. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.